Hello, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Christine. I like to read dark and disturbing things, and today we are going to have a reading vlog where women are recognizing and seizing their power. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. When I started this vlog, because this is really future me or present me, it's really present me. I'm filming this right now. Anyway, this is future Christine, and I did not realize when I started this vlog where it was going to go. I had 3 books that I wanted to read. Mary by Nat Cassidy, which has been waiting for me all year to read. The Change by Kirsten Miller, and Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I had wanted to read all of these anyway, and I felt like they kind of felt like they were giving me similar vibes. I wasn't sure exactly what. I had a feeling they were all going to be fairly feminist and that they were going to be possibly witchy. I knew for a fact Cackle obviously was going to be witchy, and I knew that The Change was going to be witchy because it says on the back. But Mary, I wasn't sure about. It just says that Mary is going to find herself. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if she was going to have some powers. I kind of wanted to go into that one blind. So I didn't really know. But as I went on reading these books, you will find that I discovered that these are more about mature women, which I appreciated because I'm so mature. And these were about women who were really just finding themselves later in life, which I also liked because I think that women often, not always, but often put themselves aside for other people, whether it is being a mother or a girlfriend or a wife or whatever, dedicating herself to her career for the time being and kind of losing herself in that process. So I like the idea of like revisiting learning about yourself because we change over time. But what I found was that these women not only were finding themselves, but they were finding their inner power and they were seizing that power and doing something with it. And I really had a good time reading this. So we are gonna follow along as I kind of check in while reading all 3 of these books, and you can get my thoughts and opinions. And at the end, I will let you know what I rated everything. But first, you're gonna hear a little bit about how I get my power. Speaking of seizing your power, I don't think I would be able to do half the things that I do without the help of caffeine, and specifically coffee. I am from the Pacific Northwest, and here coffee is not just something that you drink, it is a lifestyle. When Javy reached out to me and asked me if I would like to try their coffee concentrate, at first I was like, wait a minute, what is concentrated coffee? And then I said, sure, let's give it a shot. I would like to see what it's all about. And they sent me a bottle of their original coffee concentrate. They also sent me this handy dandy recipe booklet, which I'm super grateful for because I don't really know how to make a lot of fancy drinks or anything like that. And this helped me out. So I did try to make a couple of things. First, I tried to make your basic, just hot coffee. And it's super simple. All you do is heat some water, and then you can add 1 to 2 teaspoons of the coffee concentrate. I started off with 1 and it was a little weak for me, so I added a 2nd teaspoon and it was a little too strong, kind of Goldilocks here. So I think 1.5 teaspoons for me personally would be perfect, but of course everybody has their own preference. My feelings on the hot coffee were that it was pretty good. It wasn't quite up there for brewing a fresh pot of coffee or a fresh cup of coffee for me personally, but I think that in a pinch that I would like to have this option on hand, especially if you're at work or somewhere where you can't have a coffee maker. All you really need is to have this little bottle and some hot water. It's also perfect if you don't really feel like making a pot of coffee, but you just need a single cup. I also wanted to try something that would satisfy my sweet tooth, and I wanted to try something as a cold coffee. So I tried their caramel oat milk latte. This was super easy to make. You basically fill the bottom of your cup with some caramel, which I had on hand, and I may have gone a little crazy. I didn't know how much to add, but no regrets because it was freaking delicious. So you fill your cup with caramel as much as you want, and then add ice, put the milk in, and then add your coffee. And This was delicious, you guys. I have no reason to go out and buy coffee, an iced coffee, anywhere else after having this. This was so good. And I can make it in my house, so that's a plus. There are quite a few more recipes that I didn't have a chance to try yet, but I plan on it. And I was reading a little bit about the company, and they like to focus on three things: convenience, sustainability, and being guilt-free. While I can't really speak on the sustainability of the company, I feel like that's a little bit out of my expertise. I will say it is super convenient, especially like I said, if you only want to make 1 cup of coffee or have it on hand in a place where you can't really have a coffee machine. And being guilt-free, they mean that in the way that you're feeling guilt-free as not wasting plastic. As someone that's had K-cups before, I agree, you do feel pretty guilty seeing all of that plastic waste in your garbage can. Javy was also nice enough to send me a code that anyone can use to save 20% off their website. It is Kritz Read, and I will link that down below in the description box if you would like to give their company a shot. I was on their site this morning, and as of this morning, they did have some great deals going on, as well as some seasonal flavors. So feel free to check them out and let me know what you think. So last night I started Cackle. I got to page 40 and I found it hard to put this down actually, but I had to stop because I was coming across passages that I was really into, and I had to dog ear my pages because I was in bed and I didn't have any like little stickies to stick in there, and I was not getting out of bed. So it'll have to do. This is so far about a woman named Annie. She just turned 30 and she is going through some changes in life right now. She is about to start a whole new job. She's about to move to a new town, and it's all kind of stemming from her long-term boyfriend of 10 years kind of breaking up with her. He just decided that they were more like best friends than they were lovers. So yeah, she's trying to adjust through a lot of things, and we actually meet her on her birthday, where she has a coworker who has brought her out to kind of get drunk and have fun, because she doesn't even really have, like, her best friend is now her ex-boyfriend. So yeah, that's where she's at. So they go out drinking, and towards the end of the night they stumble into a palm reader shop, and they get their palms read. And actually the psychic just looks at Annie's palm and she's just like, nope, you got dark energy. And so I don't know what's going to come of that, but it certainly sets the tone of just what she's going through. I just want to read these passages to you. I don't think they're going to be spoilers in any way because I'm only 40 pages in. But one is where she is in her new apartment and she is kind of feeling all alone. And this is her way of describing what it's like to go from being in a relationship to not being in one. It's so easy to adjust when you're newly in love, when you're all gooey, soft, and malleable as an infant's skull. You make so much space in your life and in your heart, and when the person you love leaves, you're all stretched out. There's so much room inside me I don't know what to do with, space I don't know how to fill. I've been waiting for it to shrivel up, for me to take my former shape, to be how I was before I met him, but that's not happening. It's been so long, I don't even remember who I was before I met him, or before him. I think we've probably all felt that way before, where part of our identity just kind of turns into being part of a couple. And then who even are you when you're by yourself again? I think that especially women have a problem with this. I guess I can only speak from a woman, my point of view, but I know a lot of friends that, you know, we basically drop everything to be with somebody, and then what happens when that person's not in our life anymore? And we just feel so empty and alone. And yeah, that one hit me in the feels. I'm reading this coming off of a book that was really like very surface level writing, and I'm absolutely loving the writing. It just has me engaged in this character. Even though I'm not sure that this is like a type of book I would normally read, I'm really enjoying it so far. And then the other passage that I had was her just kind of being disappointed with things that go on in life. And it says, isn't it classic me to put faith into something implausible, like a grocery store with an exceptionally friendly staff, like birthday cake flavored gum, like a story happily ever after, like true love? Whenever I'm let down by reality, I'm simultaneously shocked and embarrassed by my lack of ability to anticipate the completely predictable outcome. And it's just, you know, when we watch movies and TV shows, and I guess even read books, we have these unrealistic expectations, I think, of what will happen. You always see just the plain person who is not really putting themselves out there, putting forth any effort to make changes, and all of a sudden something will happen to them walking down the street. They'll fall in love, or they'll, you know, meet the person of their dreams, or just be presented with this opportunity. They'll find out they have magic. Like, unfortunately, life does not usually work that way. And this is just her, I think, realizing that she can't really be in this dream world of the best case scenario, or what if this happens. She's going to have to make things happen for herself. So all I know so far is that she has moved into this new place. There's something going on with spiders being in her place, which I would have been out of there. She's nice enough to actually collect the spiders and let them outside. Whereas I'm like, no, they're just gonna come back. Don't do that. But I feel like there's something significant about the spiders, and then they're like all over the cover as well. So I am sucked into this writing style, and I'm really liking this so far. So I don't even know what to expect when I went into this, but having a good time. I will check back with you later and give you my thoughts. Whew, all right, so today, if you could see this room, it is a mess. I have taken down most of my Halloween decorations. And yeah, I mean, not the ones that I keep up all year round, but this room looks very messy because there's just stuff everywhere. So I just wanted to check in before I finally sat down to relax because I'm very tired. I have been reading Cackle. I am on page 132, so almost halfway. So our main character, Annie, has met Sophie, who was the one that gave her a bottle of wine, and they've been hanging out a lot lately. And Sophie seems to have a negative effect on people, seem to dislike her. Sorry, my arm was getting tired. So it seems like wherever they go, the other townspeople really seem scared of Sophie and dislike her, but they're like trying to compensate by being super nice to her. So it seems like wherever they go, she gets like free coffee or free, wherever she goes, she gets everything for free, it seems like. And when Annie goes to these places by herself without Sophie, these people are much more natural and nice. So there's obviously something going on there. Annie has been hanging out with her quite a bit, and it almost seems like Sophie is desperate for this friendship to work, which seems weird since she is such a beautiful, magnetic woman that just seems like a fun chick to hang out with. And there must be some reason for all these townspeople to be scared of her, and there must be some reason why she is so desperate to have a friend in Annie. She, not in so many words, pretty much says she's a witch without saying that word. But what that means, we don't fully know just yet. Annie has slept over at her house, like just hanging out, and it seems like there's something weird going on with her house. So while Sophie is being a little bit truthful by saying that she is not quite human, she is not being fully honest and telling her like what's going on in her house, or we've not gotten into the nitty-gritty yet. So Sophie is just really trying to encourage Annie to live her best life and not live it for any other person, not for any love interest, but for herself. She's trying to get her to think about what she really wants in life, other than just having a partner to share it with, and letting her know that it is okay to be alone and you can still have fun. So the very first part of this book, I just was really liking the writing. There was not a whole lot going on. Now things are starting to happen, and I don't know what to think at first. I was like, man, I want a friend like Sophie. I want someone who can curse people for me or help me become my best self. But she seems very needy. I'm almost starting to wonder if every time someone new moves to town, if Sophie does this, like latches onto them and then kind of discards them, or something bad happens and that's why all the townspeople dislike her. Like, I wonder if she's had this interaction with every single person. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but we will find out. So I'm going to read a little bit more and then I'll check back with you. Hello, hello. The lighting is weird, but it's what we have, so we're going with it. Anyway, I wanted to check in because I did finish Cackle the other day and I haven't checked in, and I did start a new book. So let me give you my final thoughts on Cackle. I don't really remember where I left off telling you about where I was in the story, but I can't really tell you what happened in the end, obviously, without ruining anything. But while this is not a 5-star read for me, I really, really enjoyed reading this book. I don't know, I'm kind of stuck between giving it a 4 and a 4.5 star. And it's not that the story in itself was superb, or I'm trying to think, is this something that I would carry around in my head for a while? And I don't know that it is. However, I do really appreciate a lot of parts in this book. One is just being the writing. I am not a person who tabs very often. I don't know if you could even see that because I hate when they stick out. But I tabbed quite a few passages just because I loved the writing so much in this. Granted, I came off of just reading a rom-com book that had very surface level writing, but I just really appreciated so much in this book. This story focuses very much on a relationship situation that I have had in the past, and it has been many, many years. I've been married for a long time, but it still hit so hard with me because where you're breaking up with somebody and it's not so much that something horrible happened that this breakup came on, but just all of the feelings that come with it, and finding yourself as a person again, as a single person, not as a couple, part of a couple. And I really, really liked it. And it's weird because this, like I said, I've been married a long time, so it's not something that really has affected me in a long time. I would love to see it normalized more. And maybe it is, maybe I'm out of touch with like shows today, but I wish when I was younger, it was more normalized that it is okay to be yourself and by yourself. You do not need to be in a relationship always. I feel like this affects a lot of females that I've known where they're just always in a relationship. They go from relationship to relationship, and the time in between is just spent finding another relationship. And it's okay to sit within yourself and be by yourself and be comfortable within yourself. I just wish that this was normalized more, and that is why I liked this book so much, because I wish that I had focused more on friendships back then, instead of always giving up everything to be with a certain guy. And even though some of those guys were my best friends, what happens when that doesn't work out? You no longer have that best friend. So I really wish that this was just brought up more, and really, if I had a daughter, I would be teaching her about this and talking about it, because I feel like it's just something that affected me in my life and many other women, my sisters and friends and whatnot, that have had to go through the same thing, where we feel that our worth is what kind of relationship we can be in. And if you're not in one, you're always worried about meeting someone or getting set up or doing something. It is not necessary. It is just not necessary. All right. Having gotten all that off my chest, I just wanted to read a few passage that I marked off. And there were quite a few in here. I know I read a few, but this one was towards the end, and it doesn't give anything away. It just When I was young, I used to pick out my cereal based on the prizes advertised on the box. I'd eat all the cereal and then I'd get to the prize and it would never be as good as how it looked in the box. And I would have eaten all the cereal I didn't even like just to get this disappointing, dinky little toy or whatever. I've been thinking about it a lot lately, about about what could have been my whole life. I would have been an old woman somewhere, wrinkled as a raisin, realizing I spent all my good years eating shitty cereal for an unsatisfactory prize. I just really like that analogy. There's so many in here that I just loved. The reason I can't really give it 5 stars is that I think that this has such a strong beginning, and I like the end as well, but it's the middle for me that was a little bit lacking. It was just such a strong beginning and end, and the middle fell a little bit flat for me. I still was entertained and I still was having a good time, but it just didn't live up to that 5 star in my head. The other thing, I don't think that our female friendship was perfect, and not that friendship should be. I think that it was written in a way to cast suspicion on certain characters, and that's fine, I get it. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit stronger of a friendship. Like, this was such an, if this was a relationship, I would have called it insta love, and I would have been like, I don't understand how you two ended up together. And I just wanted a little bit more meat in that relationship and a little bit more honesty. Other than that, I just really like what this story addresses, and I wish that we would see that romanticized a lot more. Romanticize being in a relationship with yourself and loving yourself. I know we always say that, but it's easy to say and not so easy to do. And I just wish we could see more people just being independent. And maybe it's because I'm older, but I'd like to think way more mature than I was before. But I love to see true friendships. I don't care if they're female, male, but just true friendships. Because I think a true friend just lasts the test of time. So for that reason, I just don't feel like it's living up to a 5 star, but it is like a very high 4 star, or maybe 4.25 star, 4.25 star. I just really love this book. Enough. I then started reading Mary, by Nat Cassidy. This looks pretty chunky, but it reads kind of quickly. I'm on page 76 already, and this is about a woman who's just turning 50. She is perimenopausal, and she has some weird shit going on in her life. She's very much like an invisible type person. She works in a bookstore that no one ever seems to notice she's even there or care about her, because she's working with a bunch of, people from younger generations that don't work as hard and think that she's unimportant, even though she is doing all the work behind the scenes, just because she doesn't make herself be seen and make herself big. She's always making herself smaller. So she is going through some weird health things. She's not sleeping well. She's having night sweats. She's seeing some weird things. Like when she looks in a mirror, or if she looks at any other female her age, she sees them like start to decompose in front of her eyes. And it's really freaking her out on it, understandably. And it's affecting her sleep, and it's just affecting her life. So she goes to a doctor, and he's just like, yep, textbook menopause. So just stay hydrated and get lots of sleep. And she's like, well, I can't sleep. So basically she even feels invisible to the doctors. And she's just trying to say like something is very wrong. During this time, she gets a call from her aunt, who she hasn't spoken to in decades. She's pretty much her only living relative. Her parents died in a questionable... Her parents died when she was young, and she was brought up by her aunt, and it sounds like that relationship was not the greatest, and her aunt is asking her to please come help take care of her because she's dying. And this is the last thing that Mary wants to do, but she really needs the money. And she's constantly trying to prove that she is a good girl or a good person. So she goes there, and even though her Aunt Nadine is so verbally abusive to her, at the same time, I kind of love reading Aunt Nadine because she's just so blunt and raw. And I know something about, like, I wouldn't ever let someone talk to me that way, but it's providing some comedic relief for me, even though she's pretty awful. Some of the things that she has the audacity to say just kind of crack me up. But Mary just takes it, and I I don't know where this is going, but I feel that Mary reads a lot younger than 50 years old to me. And maybe it is just because she is so unsure of herself, and she has such a low self-worth and such low self-confidence that, to me, that reads as a much younger person than 50 years old. And not to say that you can't have those things and be older. It just isn't giving me 50 years of life experience, because as I get older, there's a lot more stuff that I have learned not to care about, that I can just brush off and say, you know, I don't have enough time left in this life to worry about shit like that. But Mary is not to that point yet, and she's still trying to prove herself to somebody. I don't know who. I cannot wait to see the arc that Mary takes, hopefully, in this story. And I'm hoping that this is a story where she comes into herself and finds the confidence within herself to kind of give people hell. Like, I'm hoping. I don't know. I don't know what will come of this. So I am going to go read, and I will check back with you later. Hi, how are you? Today is several days since the last time I checked in, and I had my birthday and Thanksgiving, and we were decorating the house for the holidays this weekend. So I was just kind of living in the moment and not really worrying about filming anything. But I was reading, and I have finished Mary. I think when I checked in, I think I've only checked in once on this, and it was fairly early on. I think it was just when Mary had moved to her Aunt Nadine's home out in the desert in the middle of nowhere, and they were not getting along. Since then, I'm not sure if I mentioned that Mary likes to talk to these porcelain figurines that she collects, and in my mind, I am picturing Precious Moments. If you know what those are, maybe I'll pop a picture up here. But I don't know if they still make those anymore. I had a friend in high school, her mom collected them. So I just picture her talking to these things. And for whatever reason, this is like the thing that helps keep her sane-ish. Mary is a very unreliable narrator. She has a lot of things going on. Like I said, she's going through perimenopause, and she also is not sleeping a lot. So we don't know if she's hallucinating. We don't know if she has some mental health issues that have not been addressed. And she doesn't have really any memories of her childhood, which is never a good sign. But after she moves in with Aunt Nadine, she is seeing these ghosts, specifically one at her Aunt Nadine's house that's always in the bathtub. And she looks like she has suffered a physical trauma, and you can't see her face because she's wearing a cloth or a pillowcase over her head, which I guess is where this cover comes from. I always wondered what that was about. I always thought it was like hair covering at first, but yeah, no. So she doesn't ever want to go in the bathroom. Now, on top of looking in the mirror and having issues there, she is seeing these horrible ghostly images, and she needs to get out of the house a little bit. She needs to make some money. She lives very much paycheck to paycheck, and she just got fired, and she doesn't think Aunt Nadine actually has any money to pay her. So she goes to the local hospital, which is actually like this big building that is a school slash hospital slash used for other things, because this is such a small town that someone there takes pity on her and hires her kind of for like an under the table job, where she's working in the basement where they have this big thing they call the file pile. And it's basically what it sounds like, a pile of medical records from several old, now defunct hospitals that need to get filed. And it is just a thankless job. It sounds horrible, but there is another teenage girl that works down there that now she's kind of got company. So the two of them actually find this friendship. The teenage girl likes to listen to true crime podcasts while she works, and eventually Mary opens up to her and lets her know what is going on. And not only does this teenage girl, of course I can't remember her name, not only does this teenager actually listen to her and she feels seen, Mary feels seen for the first time, but she believes her and is wanting to like hang out with her and try to figure out some, like, hey, we could figure this out. Head to the library and check some microfiche. So Mary for the first time actually has a connection with another human being, which I'm not sure she's ever had based on the way that we're in her head. After that, this story goes off the rails, bonkers. It goes to places I never saw coming. Yeah, I can't really talk too much about it because it would be a spoiler. So I think it's just best to kind of go in blind. But I did not see a lot of things coming. I think the author, Nat Cassidy, did an amazing job at capturing a female's point of view. I didn't necessarily feel like this was written by a man, although I think if it was written by a female, we would have tapped into a lot more female rage, which I know sounds crazy if you read this book because there's definitely some female rage in there, but I think there would have been a little bit more bitterness to it. Whereas this is written from a more detached point of view. I mean, obviously, because Nat Cassidy has not lived this life, he really does explain in the afterword. You could tell he was kind of nervous putting this out there because he wanted to make sure that he represented this population of women very well. He didn't want, he thought, what right do I have writing this story? And I think authors are put in a bad place because a lot of times if they only write about what they know, if they are a cisgendered white male and that's what they write about, then they kind of get in trouble for not having diverse characters. But if they write diverse characters, then they're told that it's not done well or they don't have the right to do that. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. And I could see the arguments on both sides, but I do think that Nat Cassidy did a pretty good job. If you read the foreword on this, he explains his whole inspiration for writing this book, coming from a lifelong fear of the Carrie VHS tape cover, and just kind of imagining and thinking about Carrie as a actual person. And that's where Mary comes from. I don't know that I would have really captured the connection there had I not read that. So while it's inspired by that, it's definitely not like a retelling or anything like that. This, like I said, gets really bonkers. I tabbed several, I don't think you could tell. My tabbing, I really get annoyed if they stick out too much because I hate feeling it on the inside of my hand. But I tabbed quite a few passages that I just thought that stuck out to me. But I'm just going to read one to you. I don't call them beautiful. It's not that they're not beautiful. My God, they are. But that word has too much baggage. It's an outsider's world, and it was weaponized to render these women invisible in the first place. I think that's fucking beautiful and very true. I am kind of stuck on where I want to rate this book. It definitely did not quite hit the 5-star for me. And I think that the reason being that we spend a lot of time in Mary's head where she doesn't actually know who she is. Like, she has no real sense of person. And I know that's the point of the story. She's finding herself, right? She's finding herself throughout the story, but we spend a lot of that time where she doesn't know who she is. And she is so meek and so apologetic and so frustrating. Yeah, I don't know how else to say it. And I know that is the point. We're supposed to watch her grow as a person, but there's a big chunk where she is just stuck in that mindset. There's also a few things that happen that I don't want to go into because it will ruin it, where I wished it focused a little bit more on Mary herself and who she is at the core of her being. Like, I still left this book kind of wanting more answers and wanting to know more about her or where she goes from here. But that said, I did love the book. So it's somewhere between, it's either a really high 4-star for me or maybe 4.5. I'm not quite sure. I have to think on it a little bit. And then I started a new book. This one is The Change by Kirsten Miller, and I only started it yesterday. I'm 58 pages in, so I don't have a whole heck of a lot of knowledge about what this one's about. But when I bought it, when I picked it off of Book of the Month sometime last year, I just knew that it was about witches in modern day, and that's all I needed to know. So far, what I have learned is that it is about some women who do get some kind of magical or witch-like powers, but even though they kind of become aware of them before their first period, they don't actually use them or have their full power until later on in life. And I think what they mean is when they reach menopause. So I see a theme. I did not realize the change could also refer to that. It's not something I think about a lot. So these books are really making me think about menopause and that time of life. In my head, I keep thinking I don't have to worry about that for a really long time. But the truth of the matter is way closer than I think it is, I'm sure. Age is such a weird thing because as we get older, your mind still thinks you're like, I don't know, in your 20s. Like, you feel like the same person mentally, but your body is there to remind you like, nope, sorry. And so these are things I should probably be thinking about a little bit more. And I guess it's something that a lot of people don't think about unless it's actually affecting them. So if you're a man, you probably don't really think about it. Unless you're living with someone that's going through it. Or if you're a woman, maybe you don't think about it until it hits you, and then it's kind of this great fun surprise. But so these women are, I think, mostly in their 40s or older or approaching their 50s. And so these powers are starting to show themselves in, like, just kind of starting to peek their heads out. And I think so far I've met 3 women, and how they're kind of coming together. In a way, so far, it kind of reminds me of the Grady Hendrix book, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. Always screw that up. It kind of has that feel to it a little bit, kind of like the same, a little bit of the same humor, maybe because these women are having to deal with men's bullshit so far in this book. It kind of opens up with this guy that thinks he's so important because he's like head of an HOA, and he is very strict in making sure that people follow the rules. Like, their lawn has to look a certain way, like the grass can't be over 2 inches long, and he really loves to tell people when when they're not up to par and fine them and things like that. And so he picks on this older lady, and all of a sudden now he's having problems. It seems like maybe he's been cursed and he's having problems on his lawn. I don't know, something about the vibe of it is reminding me of Southern Book Club's Guide, but I'm finding these women more likable than I was in that book. So I will keep you posted on how this goes. I have to bring my dog to get a haircut She is long overdue, and I need to go to Costco and get some things, which always ends up costing so much money. Why is food so expensive? All right, enough whining. I'm hoping I can blast through this book quickly, though I'm not like a super quick reader, and this is almost 500 pages. But I really want to get this vlog up before the end of the week, so wish me luck. All right, talk to you later. I don't know why my camera just turned off. So she knows how things work, and she is ready to do something about it. Now, the things that were kind of bothering me in this book, I'm all for women power, I'm all for revenge, I'm all for good for her, but this is very heavy-handed in showing unfairness to females and fairness in the workplace. It feels like every single male character in this book is just a total piece of shit. I was almost to page 200 before you read about a decent male character. And I like what I read a little bit more nuanced than that. I feel like when you go so far the other way, and I understand you're trying to prove a point, but when you go so far the other way with sexism or racism or anything like that, I feel like it almost does not seem real. And while some things are very loud and in your face, a lot of the isms that happen in real life, in my personal experience, I should say, are like more death by 1,000 cut type things. It is the silence of, it is more of a silent thing than an in your face, like, mwahaha, evil characters doing evil things. So I've read books about sexism and I've read books about racism with the same kind of thing where it's just so over the top that it almost seems cartoonish. And I think it really takes away from the real problem. But I suppose they're trying to really enforce that this happened. And then I looked at the author, and it says that Kirsten spent 25 years as a strategist in the advertising industry. So she has probably experienced a lot of the things that have happened. She doesn't say that. She does not say that, but I'm sure she's seen a lot of shit. So maybe she's trying to shove 25 years of that into this book. I just wish it was done in a little bit better way. That's all. And I think because this book kind of turns into a murder mystery, that maybe she didn't have enough time to really go there, but I think it could have been much more effective if it was done in a more realistic way, if that makes sense. Not that the things that happen in here don't actually happen. I 100% know that they do. I just think that when you make every single guy character just awful human beings all the time and in your face and so black and white, it just makes it harder to take it seriously sometimes. And I think it does a disservice to those that suffer from these situations. That said, as I've gone on in the book, it has grown on me quite a bit. I do like our characters. I wished it focused more, and what I thought I was getting to was that it would focus more on their witchy powers. I suppose some of the characters do, but it feels like it's way more focused on this murder mystery. And they are so impatient. Like when they see something is not being done, like instantly, they're pissed off. And in some situations I understand, but it's like, what, these things take time. You can't expect to just have no evidence and expect everybody to go your way. But I don't want to talk about it anymore because I think I start going into spoiler territory. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now with this. And I will let you know my final thoughts after I finish, hopefully tomorrow morning. I'm trying to be festive and get my tree in there, but that window is also my source of light all the time. So let's go with it. The other thing is if you hear like this weird motorized sound, it is the star on top of the tree. So I usually have to turn my tree off. But what the heck? Okay. So I gotta get in the frame. So I did finish The Change last night, or this morning. I read most of it yesterday, and thoughts. I thought while I was reading this that I was probably going to rate it a 3-star, but I don't know, it kind of grew on me a little bit more. And towards the end, I'm feeling a little more 3.5-star-ish. So this book turned out to not really be what I thought it was going to be. It is not so much focused on the characters. I think I'm more of a character-driven reader. And I really was hoping to get into like our characters' powers. And they do go, there is a lot of like looking back at different characters, not even just our main characters, but other side characters. As we kind of see something happen, it'll like do like a flashback of how they maybe got that way or what motivated them to act in a certain way. And I did appreciate those points, but I thought this was going to be way more focused on our witches having witchy power. And I don't even know that I would call them witches. Like, it's almost like they have superpowers. I'm not really sure at where you draw the line between like a superpower and a witch power, but to me, like, they weren't practicing witches, they had just powers. There was a quote towards the end that I kind of enjoyed, so I'll just read that really quick. There have always been those who want to deny women power, and there are also women who refuse to accept it. Some who've mastered the games men play choose to betray their own kind. These women are our most dangerous enemies. And I really like that. There was like I kind of complained about before about it being heavy-handed, there was another really long part that was heavy-handed. It was about Harriet, and her lawyer stops by her home, and he's like, because she's now let like her garden, she's let her garden grow, and it's got all kinds of crazy things going on in this garden. And he just has a lot of opinions about this garden. And it's obviously a metaphor for women, like the garden is women. This section goes on for several pages, which I found way too long. And it's her lawyer. Like, she pays this man, like, it was her divorce lawyer, and she picked him out. And he stops by her house, and he's like pointing out everything in her garden, and was like, this is not right, and this is not right, and how could you have this? And it went on for so long. It just, in real life, did not seem like that would ever happen. And then she gets to a point where she goes, Harriet smiled and cocked her head. Suddenly, everything seemed clear. Mr. Clark, do you find my garden offensive because you can't control it? So obviously, it's all a metaphor for women in general and women's behavior. But it was just so heavy-handed. I felt like it was written for a much younger audience, despite the fact that our characters are in their mid to late 40s. So like I said, I just like things when they're a little bit more nuanced, and I'm not getting just like hit over the head with a sledgehammer to get the point across to me, because it's not needed. Although I do really like the themes in this book, and I like what the author was trying to do. I do notice that it says she is a feminist author in YA literature, and she's best known for her popular Kiki Strike series, which I'm not familiar with. So maybe some of that is just that she's used to having to spell things out a little bit more for a YA audience. Although I could probably have a whole argument on why we don't need to do that. We don't need to talk down and dumb down our YA books either, because I just don't think it's necessary. I think that people are smarter than we give them credit for, and we don't need to do that. I feel like it's almost like something I would have written in high school or maybe college, where I thought I was being really clever and doing this metaphor, but it's not that clever. You don't have to do that. Overall, though, I did find this an enjoyable read. It was pretty long. I almost wish that it was kind of a series where it started off with us getting to know the women and their journeys really well, and then maybe it kind of branching off into them solving these mysteries, because it turned into a mystery book really quick and I just wanted more character work. But I can't really fault a book for not being what I wanted it to be, because that is what it is. It is a mystery book. I just wanted more focus on the witches. So I am going to be giving this a 3.5, and that's all I have to say for now. Okay, so it is future/present me, and I hope you had a good time hearing my thoughts about all of these. I've now had time to kind of think about all of them a little. Obviously, the change was the most fresh for me, but Cackle, I kind of feel like if I could blend these two books together, it would make the perfect book, because this had a lot of inner dialogue or author commentary when we're learning about our character that I really appreciated, and I tabbed so many things that I absolutely loved. But the story itself was a little bit lacking for me. It was just a little bit surface level. I wanted a little bit more from the story itself. Whereas I love the story of this, but I felt a little detached from Mary, and I wanted more of that inner commentary and dialogue from Mary. Now, Mary is a little bit of a tricky situation because Mary doesn't really know herself, but she also feels super detached from what is going around her, what is going on with her. Like, she's detached from herself, she's detached from reality, she's detached from everything. And because of that, and I know that that is part of the story, but because of that, I just didn't have quite the same connection as I did. And so I don't know if what was missing from making this a 5-star read for me, because I'm going to give this 4 stars. I really, really liked it, but it was missing some kind of spark for me. It was missing something. And I'm not sure if it is just Mary's detachment in general, not really getting to know Mary as a person because she doesn't know herself, or it could possibly be just because this was written by a male author. And not that that's a bad thing. I think that Nat Cassidy did a great job considering he's not female, but I feel like if it was written by a female, we would have had a little sharper edge. We would have had a little anger kind of peeking through. I just feel like it would have been a little more personal. And I think you know what I mean if you're a female. The fangs would have come out just a little bit more. And even though they came out, I feel like when they did, Mary just didn't really care anyway. It didn't mean anything to her. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. But for some reason, it was just missing a little something to knock it into the 5-star. I also rated Cackle 4-star. That was mostly because of the story itself was lacking. Some of the friendship aspect was not quite believable. I love Ralph. I don't even know if I mentioned Ralph. Ralph was like a little pet spider that she had that made me want to like spiders. And fun fact, Ralph was the name of my first dog. So I also just had an affection for Ralph. I didn't particularly like our main character, and I kind of wanted her to get with the program a little bit earlier, but you know, she's growing, she's learning. And I loved all the things that the author had to say, which I really identified with, again, maybe because she is female, but the story itself was a little bit lacking, but maybe that was just to keep it a little bit warm and cozy, and that's okay too. And last but not least, the change. I am rating 3.5 star. I will probably round it down to 3 star for Goodreads, just because I was kind of on the cusp of between a 3 and a 3.5 while I was reading this. And this one was lacking the character development for me and the character work, and focused a lot more on the mystery and kind of action of what was going on, which I think that is just going to come down to what kind of reader you are and what you appreciate in a book. There's a lot of people that would way rather have more action than character work. overall, I had a really great time reading these feminist pieces of fiction. You know, we love to see a woman get a little revenge. We love a good for her story, and I would love to read more in this genre. So if you have any recommendations of a book that you really like that kind of fits this theme, let me know so I can check it out. And if you've read these, let me know, especially if you've read all three, which one was your favorite? I think I'm gonna have to go third place. This one's a little tough, but I think second place and first place, Mary. So there we have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that after I edit this, it's not too long to sit through. But if you've made it this far, leave me a knife emoji, like a stabby knife. I don't know why I did that. In case you're feeling a little stabby, it just helps get it out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, stay spooky.